All right, here we go. This is a big one, okay? You know I love making these videos revisiting old trades, and this one, let me tell you, this is going to be a fun one, okay? We're looking at the PK Subban Shea Weber trade many years on here. How many is it? Okay, so the trade happened on June 29th, 2016, so we're almost exactly 5 years on. And dude, this trade, when it first happened, I remember the majority of Habs fans were really upset at this. They were losing PK, the face of the franchise other than Carey Price, and just such a vibrant personality. He had won a Norris Trophy only 3 years before that, and in 2014, that playoff run, he was absolutely spectacular in that run there. So a lot of Habs fans weren't happy. And for me, PK was my favorite player on the Montreal Canadiens. I was crushed when I learned this news. And honestly, I was like, this is the worst trade ever that Bergevin's ever made. And plus, the week before at the draft, Bergevin came out and he was like, we're not trading PK Subban. And then a week later, bye-bye PK, you're going to Nashville. But in retrospect, I mean, this trade just keeps looking better and better. And look, there's some stipulations. There's some things we're going to look at that, maybe don't look too great. But this is very, very interesting to look back on. Let's jump into it. So obviously, the first thing you got to look at for a trade like this, it's going to be the stats, right? So in 2016-17, PK's first year with Nashville, 66 games, 40 points, very good season. And that's the year that he went to the Stanley Cup Final, 22 games played, 12 points. He was honestly, in my opinion, he might have even been the #1 defenseman on Nashville during that playoff run. You could definitely make an argument for Yossi, for Ekholm, but PK was playing great, and that's when people were really saying, see, why did you trade him? PK's amazing. That's when people were really starting to get mad at Bergevin, and that was the Stanley Cup Final where PK was messing around with Crosby, said that Crosby said he had bad breath or whatever, that whole thing. But at this point, PK's looking great, and he's outshining Weber, who's out in Montreal, right? Like at this point, let's not deny it. Here, at this point in 2017, a lot of fans are missing PK. Let's be real about it. And then that next year, 2017-18, did not help. Now the Nashville Predators are really looking like a contender year in, year out. They look like a great team, and PK is a huge part of that. 2017-18, 82 games, 16 goals, 43 assists, 59 points. For a defenseman, that's a rock-solid, amazing year. Okay, and then in the playoffs, he got 13 games played, 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points. Very good playoffs for PK Subban. So at this point, again, he is probably, if not the top defenseman, a top 2 defenseman on the Nashville Predators here. And again, it's looking like, why did we trade PK? Because PK is also a couple years younger than Weber, so this is really when it's like, ugh. The next year, however, 2018-19, PK has a bit of a rough year. 63 games, 9 goals, 22 assists, 31 points. And then he goes in the playoffs, 6 games played, 1 goal, 2 assists. So a bit of a rough season for PK, but a lot of people are thinking, it's a one-off. He'll bounce back next year. He had some injuries. Well, the next year, guess what? He's not even in Nashville anymore. He gets shipped off to New Jersey, okay? And this, to me, really kind of signals the decline, the true decline of PK Subban. And we're seeing it now, and it's kind of sad because I loved when he was one of the best, most flamboyant D-men in the NHL. I love that time, but this starts to signal the decline, and his 2 years in New Jersey have not been good at all, okay? 18 points and 19 points. Some injuries have plagued him in that time. Also, look at that plus minus. Minus 21 and minus 60. I mean, I know that the Devils teams he's been on have not been good, but still, man, those are rough numbers to look at. And of course, we can't not mention the controversy with PK Subban. There was a lot of people saying a bunch of stuff about, this player, that player, getting in fights with Pacioretty, getting in fights with that guy, Brendan Gallagher. We know they have a bit of beef history, and apparently PK wasn't too happy not being picked as the captain. Just rumors like that. We don't know if there's any truth to them, but if there was some friction or something caused in the locker room, then that also probably played a factor in him being traded. But you saw how it was. It was a roller coaster, up and down, and now PK is more on the decline. We'll see. I mean, we'll see if he can basically revive his career and go back to the D-man he once was. But look, he's not 23 anymore, okay? PK Subban, he's over 30 years old. It's going to be tough for him to go back, so that's where he's at. And Shea Weber, on the other hand here, and keep in mind that when Bergevin traded for Shea Weber, he wasn't just looking for points, the big slap shot. That's just one point and one part of Shea Weber here. What Bergevin was really looking for was some sound leadership. And he said something really interesting in his press conference yesterday, if you guys heard it. He mentioned the type of players that play for the Montreal Canadiens and are part of the leadership group for this Habs team right now. They're calm, soft-spoken, and their play does the talking out on the ice. And I don't think that was a direct shot at PK Subban, but it definitely shows you where Bergevin's head was at in terms of the type of players he wanted. Guys who are quiet, maybe even shy. They're not going to be big raw guys, but they're going to go out on the ice. They're going to be sound leaders, cool, calm, and collected. And you think of guys like Carey Price, you think of guys like Jeff Petry when you hear that, and of course, you think of Shea Weber. And look, people talk about Shea Weber like he's 86 years old. Like, no, the dude can still play. And yes, injuries have played a factor here, and we'll get into the contracts in a second, because Habs fans, if you don't know the contract situation, get ready to maybe cringe a little bit. But look, in his first year in Montreal, 16-17, the Habs made it back to the playoffs. Let's not forget that. In 15-16, the Habs missed the playoffs, and that's part of the reason why PK got traded, and they wanted a change of culture. In 16-17, they make it back to the playoffs. In 78 games, a healthy season for Weber, 42 points, 17 goals, almost 20 goals for a defenseman there. Very good. And then in the playoffs, 6 games played, 3 points, nothing special. The next year, 17-18, riddled with injuries for number 6 for the Habs. 26 games played only. 16 points though. So in the 26 games he played, he was ripping it up. And then in the next season, 58 games, again, very injury riddled, but he played over half of the season. 14 goals, 19 assists, 33 points. We're sensing a little bit of a decline there, but you got to expect that because, again, Shea Weber, he was climbing up into his 30s here, so he's not going to be putting up 60, 70, 80 points per year. And then the next year, which was last year, 65 games, relatively healthy season for Weber standards, 15 goals, 21 assists, 36 points. So clearly you can see that when he gets a full season of action, he's going to be creeping up, touching that 20 goal mark, getting around there. If he doesn't hit 20, he'll be kind of sniffing around, flirting with it. And then of course this season we know that in 48 games, which healthy season for him considering it was a 56 game season, 6 goals, 13 assists, 19 points, the same amount as PK Subban. So make of that what you will. But we know that, again, this is one of the guys, and you guys have heard me mention this so many times with these players, it's not just about the points with the guys that Bergevin gets. The leadership you get from Shea Weber is unmatched, and I would argue that his leadership is the type of leadership that helps you get out of a 3-1 hole against the Toronto Maple Leafs, that helps you keep your composure to finish off the Winnipeg Jets, have the killer instinct, and sweep them. I'd argue that, seriously. But here's where things get a little bit dicey, Habs fans. So PK Subban, you look at the number on his contract, $9 million, you say, ouch, right? But if you look at it, he's only got $9 million until the end of next season, 2021-22, and then he's a free agent, and he can sign for peanuts. He can sign for $1 million, and all of a sudden, PK Subban is a great value player at $1 million. But on the Shea Weber side of things, he is signed for 5 years after this one at $7.85 million. Okay, and that is really rough. Okay, if Shea Weber was 26, no problem, no sweat. But the guy is 35 years old, soon to be 36 in August, with significant injury history behind him. So, like, it's very plausible he gets injured again, which, again, you've got LTIR for that, but it's just that is pretty bleak. Looking at it, 5 years after this one for a 35-year-old with an injury history. And I understand he'll be great in the room, but I mean, for that type of money, you need somebody who's going to make a significant impact on the team. And in the future, I could see that contract really hurting the Montreal Canadiens. If they win a Stanley Cup here, hey, I mean, I guess you could make the argument that it's worth it. But PK, who's off the books after the end of next season and can sign for $750,000, $1 million, looks a lot better than Shea Weber at 5 years, $7.8 million. But again, lots of other intangibles here, and this is honestly the most interesting one I've made so far in my opinion. Very fascinating. because Habs fans now think that they won the trade. And I wouldn't argue. Shea Weber has been amazing as a Hab, but there's some other things that need to be taken into consideration here. And I want to hear from you guys. Do you miss PK? Let me know in the comments down below. Give me some love for PK or some hate. I guess we'll see. But yeah, I want to see that. And if you're new here, you know what to do. Like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.